Hey everybody, it's Hannah. I wanted to talk about the offshoring of industries from the US, and the way that AI right now represents a form of offshoring in terms of the effect on the people who work in the industries affected, which is a lot. Um, as someone who is a career commercial driver, um, so to speak to that for a second, I know I'm constantly told that I don't seem like a career commercial driver, and I have hit it and quit it and done other things, but I always come back to it. And I appreciate commercial trucking, commercial driving as an industry and like as a form of like viable, gainful employment so much. And I've always been a big advocate for people getting into it if they're interested at all. It's not for everybody, you know. But let's see, I've held a Class A commercial driver's license in good standing for 26 years now, believe it or not. 26 years. I got my CDL in 1999. Um, I have all my endorsements. I've worked in many different industries. I have a totally safe driving record. I have one moving violation that's a speeding ticket from Canada, which I never paid. Um, that's from like last season, actually. I work, like kind of everybody who gets into trucking has to sort of do their time unless they have a hookup with a specific employer. Like you kind of got to do your time doing like over the road, and I've done that. I worked for Covenant Transport in 1999 and 2000, when I first got my license. I was in the National Guard as a truck driver for a couple years before, so I already had some familiarity. But yeah, I worked for Covenant Transport. Those are the ones that have like the anti-abortion like messaging on the back of the trailers. Um, that was like coast to coast, over the road, Class A trucking. I worked for a small, like mom and pop, like regional dedicated kind of route after that, also Class A. I've been a bus driver. Don't like that. I don't like human cargo. Um, I've worked in the oil field as a water truck driver. I have worked in CDL education, teaching people how to drive and teaching them, coaching them how to pass their, computer tests that they have to take at the DMV in order to get their Class A learner's permit or their Class B learner's permit. Um, Teaching them how to do the backing maneuvers on the range so that they can pass their skills test, teaching them how to shift, teaching them how to drive safely. I was a state examiner in Arizona, testing people out on their skills test for Class A, also for bus, also for Class B. I worked as an instructor in New Mexico. I worked in fuel and, hazmat transport for the last 10 years, mostly attached or connected to like wildland firefighting operations. And currently I work in aviation fueling, again, hazmat, fueling helicopters, primarily for firefighting ops. And currently right now, and for a long time, I've been a seasonal employee, so I'm off during the winter and I work all during the summer, like I work like half the year. So that's kind of my background. And I also went to college and I got a bachelor's degree in classical guitar performance, and I got a master's degree in creative writing. And music and writing are both things that I'm like heavily involved in all the time. And I was in the military. I've worked in healthcare. Like my first 6 years of enlistment with the National Guard and the Army, I was a truck driver, like I said. My second 6 years, I was in a medical squadron with the Air Force, and I was in a medical capacity, and I did that on the civilian side, which was basically like on the civilian side, it was called respiratory therapy, but on the military side, it was called cardiopulmonary technician. So I've done that. So I've done a lot of different things, and that's I just wanted to summarize that really quickly. But I'm I feel very fortunate right now to not be someone who is worried about how my industry and how my job is going to be affected by AI, which this is a thing that if you're not, it's almost like if you're not overthinking it, you're underthinking it. Um, because do you remember the phrase "learn to code"? It was so shitty. Like basically in the 2010s, there's just been a ton of offshoring. Like what's been going on in the US is like we hollowed out our manufacturing sector, and like everything that had to do with skilled labor, even unskilled labor, of like making things and doing things. We, like the governance was such that it was sent offshore so that other people in other countries can do that for cheaper to increase the profit margins and then just ship that back. And the United States has increasingly become like a service sector, and like white collar and or just gig industry, or just like really low level shit. Like we took what was kind of the heart and soul of so many of our nations, so much like our nation's backbone, like economically, and shipped overseas. Like, this, right? So like I think it was the 2010s, there was a whole bunch of manufacturing and like coal mining type jobs that were offshored, and lots of displaced workers, and they were essentially told to learn to code. And there were all of these like news articles like, oh, can coal miners learn to code, which had an incredibly flippant kind of tone, right? And so that's, in a sense, it's like come full circle now, because with AI, the white collar sector job, like the mental kinds of jobs, are at risk, and stand to pretty much like evaporate in many senses. Not every sense. I mean, we're gonna have to see how it all shakes out, like here in the next like 5 years, But there's almost this kind of like satisfied backlash, in a sense. It's kind of like, well, learn to coal mine or whatever. I mean, we do have a president now that's trying to use tariffs and negotiation to like bring things back, so that we are prioritizing manufacturing things here to, not be dependent on these kinds of like foreign relationships with that those are fraught in all kinds of different ways, to make it so that we can be sustainable as a national economy again. So I'm happy to see that happening. But like I feel like COVID was almost like a test run for this, because I meet people all the time that are like, oh yeah, remember when we were sheltering in place, And I'm like, no, because I work in the blue collar sector. I never fucking sheltered in place. Like I never didn't have work. You know what I mean? Because all of the like essential employees, I mean, it was like this actual like recognition of like the hard split happened between like the people who actually do have to show up for work, and AKA are able, like have the privilege, I guess, in the broken, money economy, to show up for work. Like that job can't be remoted out, versus like the white collar sector. And a lot of really interesting social dynamics played out around that, but so like I'll meet people that they're like in the white collar world, and like all of their friends are too, and that's their frame of reference. And so they remember COVID as being this time when they were sheltering in place and they were working from home for a long time. And then as like it kind of became a thing where that was just like the new norm, was like working from home, and businesses, like didn't want to keep paying the overhead for like these really expensive buildings to, and they could have people work from home, and then that has pros and cons and stuff like that. And so it just kind of like changed things a lot. And for those of us in the blue collar sector, no, that absolutely did not happen, So now what we're all up against is like the way that AI is going to change our ability to have gainful employment and to work. And so that's the whole kind of like context that I wanted to talk about. So I guess I'm two things. Like I'm like a career commercial driver, and I do not, absolutely do not feel threatened like whatsoever in terms of my employment relative to AI. there's things that could happen up the chain with like the government always seems to be able to like find funding to fight fires, but I think that's one of the last things that would go. But like there's risk everywhere. We are definitely occupying like target rich environment in terms of risk. So I'm two things, I'm that, and then I'm also a creative person, and I've used commercial driving as a way to like carve out enough income and to carve out enough time, like downtime, whether that's like on the clock or whether that's like I worked a whole bunch kind of on a like rotational, like remote kind of basis, so that I have like I'm seasonal right now, so I've used trucking to create that kind of either structured or unstructured downtime so that I can write songs. I'm using AI to like increasingly to like produce my songs right now. That's an interesting project that I'll probably like do some videos about. But for a long time I've been using traditional music studio recording kinds of ways to produce music and to write and to long form and write blogs and articles, and I like modeling, I like portraiture, I like photography, I like modeling, like all these kinds of nerdy creative things that I like to do, right? So yeah, that's kind of the way that I'm plugging in right now. And so back to having always, for me personally, I've always been a pretty big advocate. I don't want to make this too long, but I've been a pretty big advocate for people getting into commercial driving if it's something that they're at all interested in doing. And I was, in that sense, I was pretty well lined up for the work that I did over the years, like in CDL education. I mean, you meet a lot of different kinds of people and you have a lot of different kinds of students, and some of them are better adapted to it than others. Like some of them are like they shouldn't be there. Like they shouldn't be there, and a whole bunch like they should. Like it's going to be a great way for them to stabilize themselves and to put food on the table and to be able to support a family. And I was raised by a dad that was for a long time in the oil field, and he was gone a lot, but we still had a close family relationship, and he was still very present in our lives, and we had enough income, for my mom to be a stay-at-home mom and to raise us because my dad was doing the oil field, So, yeah, there's definitely a stereotype of career truckers, career commercial drivers that is largely true. Like it's largely true. Like that doesn't need to keep anybody out of it. And I'm just like, like Trump is going after, like he's trying to like mass deport all of I mean, we what is it, like 25 million people just were like mass imported, right, under the Biden administration. And I'm completely supportive of getting those people the fuck out of here. I'm sorry, like America needs to be for Americans. We need to stop offshore. We need to like reshore our industries, and we need to have the jobs available for the citizens who live here, who are American citizens. So I'm completely 100% behind that. Like for me, if I personally have any qualms about Trump, it's the way that he backed the vaccine and the relationship that he seems to have to Israel, which he's a tricky kind of guy. So I'm not even saying that I necessarily know where he really lines up with either of those things, but like that's where I'm at politically, right? But in terms of like mass deporting the people that were mass imported under the Biden regime, I'm like, yeah, let's do that. So the going after the people with like the working visas and stuff stands to affect, like right now, this is kind of coming up in the news, like this stands to affect the trucking industry to hit it really hard, because in trucking, I mean, for just years and years now, it's like the industry generally has been short, like, I don't know, like 60,000 drivers or something like that. Like the industry, like you could always get a job. Like I've never, since I was whatever 22 years old, in 1999, and like got my CDL, like I've never been a person who couldn't just get a job like that. Like, is it the job I want? Is it fit in with what I'm trying to do right now? Like am I feeling that way? Like maybe not, you know, but um I mean, that's a luxury, and it's especially a luxury as we're facing like the impending like tsunami of like AI and what's happening with that. So, just like I said, going back around, like as the coal miners were told to learn to code, you know, and it's like now the coders they might want to learn to fucking drive a truck or something. Like, I just wanted to give a little bit of context, like as someone who's worked in the industry for a long time, who appreciates the industry like wholeheartedly, I do, and I appreciate what it's done for me personally and like what it can do for people. That's why there's been such an influx of immigrants doing trucking. And if you know, I'm supportive of there being like the U.S. having like a sensible immigration policy and people coming here to improve their circumstances, because their shitcoin currency, their fiat is collapsing even faster than our shitcoin fiat currency. You know what I mean? So like, come here, have a better life. Like, obviously, I want the best for everybody. And if the process of immigrating could be sort of debureaucracified and possibly put on the blockchain like everything else that's government needs to be, you know, so that it's not so much like hordes of people coming across the Mexican border and then the people trying to do it the legal way are just like it's been like an insanely wrapped with red tape kind of procedure for people trying to do it the right way, you know. But anyway, yeah, the trucking industry has been just absolutely fraught with like overrun, I want to say, with immigrants, like groups of immigrants who they're not safe. They're not like, things aren't necessarily legible to them in English. They're a hazard on the road. They don't have a lot of like buy-in to like America and American culture and American trucking. And so like all of that's kind of like sorting out and sifting out and shaking out right now. But the reason that so many people who otherwise didn't have like a big opportunity here, however it is that they got here, like the Somalians, like why did all the Somalians decide to go into trucking? They're not good at it. I've worked at truck schools, and I'm not trying to say something shitty and racist, but I'm just like, maybe there's a couple Somalians out there that are like actually good at it. That's fine. I like, trucking is colorblind and gender blind and age blind. It's like it is a meritocracy. It's like you can either do it or not, you know. And if you can, and you can get stuff there safely and on time, like nobody cares, you know. But yeah, like there's, you know, there's just like certain kinds of groups that they sort of got a stronghold in trucking, and you know, maybe they're not necessarily like the safest and the best at that. So I think all this is going to sort of sort itself out with the ICE stuff going on, and deportations and whatnot. But there might be people listening to this video, I don't know, who are currently or in the future going to find themselves like in a precarious situation relative to their work, if it's some kind of mental job, especially relative to the AI onslaught, which kind of represents in a sense like an off like the effect of like an offshoring, you know, for like the white collar sector and the mental jobs. So so yeah, there is a kind of cliche and a stereotype of truckers of being like weird. True, that's true. It's all true. I don't think I've ever met a career commercial driver who's not weird. I'm weird. You're just weird. If you know, tends to be like introverts. I'm an introvert. It's like not necessarily, because there's a lot of ways to stay connected now, you know, to people, and there's truckers that certainly like talk on their phone with people all day long. So it's not necessarily that, but it does tend to be some like quirky, weird, like introvert type people. Definitely the lifestyle thing, like that's one of the reasons that I've gunned so hard for kind of like sub niche, like sub niche industries. Like I'm not just in trucking, I'm not just in hazmat trucking, I'm not just in wildland trucking, I'm not just in aviation trucking. Like it's like sub you know. And one of the reasons that I kept kind of like making, like steering that course through this industry, where kind of on one side of the spectrum it's just like go work for an over the road company, And you kind of have to, because if you don't have a lot of experience, then a lot of trucking companies, like their insurance isn't going to cover you, or the insurance is going to be too expensive if you don't have at least a year and a half or 2 years or something like that under your belt, driving in that license class, you know. But once so that's kind of where everybody starts. But like, you tend to make more money and get into more, to me, interesting work the more you get into these like sub niche industries. And also for me, what I've learned is that I prefer to be paid to be available to work versus being paid to work. And I wanted to make that distinction because that's an important distinction, that, that might be something that you could navigate even outside of trucking, like in your own industry, like as a creative person, and just as a person who has like a rich inner life and has other stuff going on. And I'm not like an action junkie, and I don't like need to, like, I don't like go crazy if I'm not just like working and doing some retarded monkey shit like literally every minute of every day, like some people do. People like that, they just need to like have a really, really busy job because they can't deal with their brain otherwise. I'm like on the other side, like I kind of want to chill, and I've like sub niche industry my way into work where I'm getting paid to be a highly credentialed person who is available to work. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm working all the time. Sometimes I have hard days. Sometimes I have really easy days. You know what I mean? Like that. But there's a lot more different kinds of people in trucking than you would think, Like once you get out there, it's in a world where we have like multiple industries that are about to be like completely collapsing because of AI. It's not necessarily a bad way to go. And so I just wanted to kind of like speak to that and to how many different kinds of trucking that there are, and how many different ways you can like sort of set up your lifestyle to be relative to like within the overall umbrella of the trucking industry. But I mean, when I got in, I went to a school that was 4 weeks long. It was called Rocky Mountain Commercial Truck Driving Academy, and it was in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and it was fucking amazing. I had a super incredible instructor. I learned to drive commercially in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is a challenging place. And I also learned to drive cars and trucks and stick shift and stuff like that, like earlier when I was a teenager in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So in terms of like a proving ground for like traffic and like vatos and like a lot of machismo on the roadways and stuff like that, it's like a really great place to learn how to drive. So that cost me $1,500 back in 1999, but it's still I mean, compared to other kinds of like credentials, which at this point I think it's like kind of insane to be in college at this point, unless you're really specifically studying to be a surgeon or something that definitely, even with AI and even with offshoring, which is hopefully a lot of stuff being reshored, like hopefully there's like an absolute career path forward, like it's been kind of crazy for a while to just go to college and just hang out, like have that college experience with the price tag that's attached to that and the debt that's attached to that. I mean, I don't have kids, but if I had a kid, like that's the last fucking thing that would be happening. And I would be sending their asses straight to trade school, and if they want to go have the college experience, they can pay for it themselves from what they're making being like an HVAC repair person or whatever. Like that's where I'm at, and I'm telling you that as someone who has an advanced degree, and I'm actually like really happy with the degrees that I got. They were in the arts. They were in other forms of meritocracy. Like you can't like play bad music and get somewhere, and you can't write shitty prose and get somewhere. Like those were actually like the right thing for me. And they're things that I'm involved, like music and writing are things that I'm involved in like heavily. So I didn't, for me, this probably from the outside looking in looked like maybe a dumb move or something like that, but I didn't want to get a degree in business management or criminal justice or hotel management or whatever. Like, that's fine if that's what you did. But I already knew that I could be in the military and or I could be in trucking. Like I knew how to make a paycheck, you know what I mean? So I wanted to like cultivate myself. So I don't regret the time that I spent in school. But yeah, at this point, to you know, if this is for you, or if you have like adult, you know, increasingly adult children, on the cusp of adulthood children or whatever, like, I think it's absolutely fucking crazy to just send kids to college and be like, I don't know, see what strikes your fancy, and like go have the college experience and figure it out. Like it's been crazy for a while, but it's like really crazy now to do that. You know, like I think that the trades are kind of where it's at. I mean, that's really, really, and not even all of that's going to be safe, but it's going to be like by and large kind of a safe spot. And that's why I'm saying that I think that the COVID experiment, the fake pandemic, kind of showed us, like, here are the kinds of employees that actually keep this fucking country running, and here's the kind of employees that, sorry, don't necessarily do that, and that shit could probably be automated and like AI'd like pretty easily. You know, no offense to anybody who is putting out some fire TPS reports or whatever you're doing, but now, so there's been, you know, how there's just increasing like governmental overreach into everything. Now I think since 20, I don't know, like the late 20 teens, I think the government mandated something that was like, now you have to go to an accredited truck school, because it used to be like, if you could just borrow your, you know, get a permit, get a learner's permit, like borrow your fucking uncle's truck and have him go around with you, or somebody could teach you or whatever, then you could go pay a couple $100 and go to the MVD and just take a skills test. And if you passed it, then boom, now you're a trucker. Like, now you can go get a job. So it's not that way anymore. Now you're actually mandated and required to go to an accredited trucking institution. And so, of course, the truck schools, which I used to work for them, they're gonna squeeze every dollar out of people. So I think it, you know, there's some places where it costs like $9,000, $10,000, $11,000 now to get a Class A commercial driver's license. That's still cheaper than a lot of other things that you could do, cheaper and faster. It might be like a 15-week long, like semester long kind of process now, but it's still a lot of bang for the buck. There are lots of companies that will train drivers, you know, in exchange for like a degree of indentured servitude to that company afterwards. I wouldn't do that. Like, find some way to like scrape together the money and get it of your own free will. And because there's nothing shittier than shitty stuff in the trucking industry. Like, it's absolutely rife with abusing drivers. Now with the electronic logbooks, they can't do that so much. But when I first got in, I mean, my ass got abused like really, really hard, because they could just be like, well, you know, and I've run double logbooks and stuff like that. Like, they can't really do that, because now also, helpfully, the government mandated electronic logbooks. So it's actually like you do have to shut down, and you can't actually like abuse your drivers to that extent. But in terms of being thrown into situations and having inadequate training and stuff like that, it's still that way, you know? So you have to be like a pretty safety conscious kind of person, and like willing to advocate for yourself and stuff like that. But I don't think that a degree of indentured servitude to an organization that you don't necessarily know a lot about is worth it in order to get your education paid for, because it's not that much of an education, like, it's not that expensive still. But I mean, if that's your only option, then just try to talk with other drivers that work for that company, and if they're miserable, then don't do that, and if they seem pretty happy, then do that, you know. But you know, I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful that I plugged into trucking years ago when I did. I'm grateful that I've stayed in it. It's not a hard credential to keep. All you have to do to keep this credential for literally the rest of your life is to just pass a really basic physical every 2 years. It's a DOT physical. And if you get really big and fat and sick, you're probably not going to pass it. So you have to keep yourself somewhat together, you know. They measure your neck circumference now, and if it looks like you're a candidate for sleep apnea, because that's really dangerous with fatigue and deoxygenation at night, then they're going to send you off for a sleep study. So you got to keep your shit together. Which again, that's why I've, like, not just for better pay and also a better lifestyle, but like I've kind of gone the way that I have with sub niche industries, because I can eat better, I can work out, I can like keep myself lifestyle wise like the way that I want to and that I need to, and that is tough over the road. People pull it off, like the decision to just utterly let yourself go, is no matter what your job is, like you still have some like conscious directional control over that, you know. Um, so yeah, the trucking industry is rife with people who have, you know, utterly let themselves go, and like, it is tough. It is tough, you know, especially with certain kinds of jobs, not with mine, but like with certain kinds of jobs. But, you know, I just wanted to give a little bit of a download about that, because not everybody's going to make it through. A lot of people aren't going to make it through this AI apocalypse. And maybe this video could find you. And I'm not sure that I offered, like, I'm not sure that what I said is really, I'm not trying to like advertise for something that, like, I'm just trying to be really real with you. But like, I'm a person who I care about making an income. I care about having time to myself to do creative projects. I care about how I feel. I care about how I look. I care about how I live. I care about food. I'm a lifelong vegetarian, vegan. I care about having my little dog with me. That would be like probably a whole other subject. But if anybody out there has managed to largely like keep their little dogs with them, it's truckers. I will say that. You know, it's not something that I would ever sugarcoat, because I've had some super stressful days. I've had crazy stressful days as a truck driver. I've never had a bad day. Like, I've never hurt anybody. I've never killed anybody. I've never been in an accident. I've never caused an accident. You know, like I've been a very careful. I've never been like the fastest like hot shot driver at any of the companies I've worked for. I've never been the best trucker at any of the companies I've ever worked for. Like, I've been in like the 80th percentile or whatever, and I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that, you know. But it's a way. Like, it doesn't just have to be like driving every day for 500 miles on the interstate, you know. Everybody maybe like, you kind of have to go through that phase, but it doesn't have to stay there. It's a big world. It's a big world. There's a lot of things that you can do with a CDL. And importantly, and increasingly, with everything that's going on with, you know, the deportations and the visas and AI and stuff like that, it is one industry that pays well, that you'll never have to worry about just your ability to get a job. Like, trust me, you can get a job. You might not want that job, but you can get a job. You can get a job. You can support yourself, and you can support a family, depending on how expensive that family is. Like, you can like do the stuff that you need to do, you know, as a working person. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about that. A lot of things are coming together right now, you know, that are gonna like box people out, and it's gonna feel scary and desperate. And there's a big trucking industry waiting to welcome anyone who is willing to be safe and on time and learn, you know. And if you don't think you can do that, then you shouldn't be in it. It's a lot of responsibility, like, on that level, you know. But you'll always have a job. Okay, that's it. I just wanted to say those couple things. Hope you're well.